Good evening, grazers. This is John Toth here, Grazing Creation Farm. Was wanting to show you guys what I would say is a failed attempt at annuals this year. So a little bit of backstory is that several years ago I sprayed glyphosate on this field and came in and planted several annuals. The first year I did crabgrass and some Sudan grass and some other stuff, and the crabgrass was not annuals. Obviously, it comes back. And then I came in the next year, did the same thing, sprayed it, and that year I planted sorghum, Sudan grass, soybeans, cowpeas, a lot of different stuff, a 12-way mix, and had really good success. And for the most part, every year I've been planting some in here. Now, cost-effective wise, for me, I can't say that the annuals are really super cost-effective by the time I buy them and spend the money on them. But what I turn around in the fall and I put a fall mix in. Same thing, it's a winter mix of some type. Usually it's got cereal, rye, turnips, collards, kale, things like that. And the intent is, for those that don't know, me and my kids really enjoy deer hunting, and so I've got 20 acres here that's planted in annuals, and so there's a lot of deer that come in here, and it makes for some good hunting opportunities. And the kids and I enjoy shooting deer, and we enjoy donating deer to others as well. So we eat all the deer meat we want, and obviously all the beef we want. So but in my opinion, this year it's a failure. And so one of the things that happened is the day I planted this, it had started raining, and I had the no-till drill rented from Soil and Water District, and I only had it rented for, I think, 2 days. And I started planting, and the ground got soft. I continued to plant a little bit, and ultimately we ended up with 4 inches of rain that day that I planted. So I think most of the seed, especially the smaller seeds, got too deep into the ground. And I think that's my biggest reason for a failure. I did have fairly good success germination in there initially, but then I think it was 2 days later, we ended up with a couple inches of rain. And then for the next month, for the next 4 weeks, I had a half an inch of rain was it. Came in 2 weeks later and crimped the cereal rye and hairy vetch that was in here from last year to try to provide some cover on here. And I don't know that helped it or hurt it. Really, I can't say. There is the annuals here, as you guys can see. Even despite the fact that we are really green, I would say, and I would say blessed for being, it's now the 27th of July, I think, and you know we're pretty green. But there's been a lot of storms that's missed my farm. It's gone north or south, and I know that's a easy excuse sometimes, but I've done this in years past, and most of the time, for the last several years, most of the time my annuals would come up and be 4 foot high, you know, with the sorghum, and everything else would be, you know, down underneath there. And there's peas in here, there's soybeans in here, and so, but obviously there is tons of leftover old food plot stuff that was in my mix. You can see all the white clover that's in here, and then, but there is peas. This blend had some peas in there. There's soybeans in here. There's sorghum in here, and I would have to look at what all was in there. It was a 15-way mix. I got it from Green Cover Seed. It was inoculated. I have not fertilized this field. In the first year I planted some annuals, I put fertilizer down, and the annuals grew like crazy. They were literally 10 foot tall. I was knocking down paths, and at that time I think I had 60 pairs. I was grazing at like a third of an acre a day, and so I was strip grazing it super hard. Cows look great on it. So, but I just pulled the fence up. I moved them on here yesterday. My goal is, out of this 20 acres, I'm gonna go over it twice. So I'm gonna do an initial easy pass over the top of it, and then I'm gonna come back and probably graze it harder, and then I will plant some annuals in here this winter. So just to look at, I guess, kind of what they left behind. And this is obviously selective grazing. They're getting to graze what they want, so they've left this horse nettle behind. But you know, here's some pretty poor soybeans, cowpeas that's in here that they didn't eat all of. The cows obviously got anything they wanted. There's plenty of clover in here. I think Queen Anne's lace. There is, and this, so they've got lots of protein, as you can tell by that manure pile. But so my plan is to continue to graze them across this for hopefully the next 40 days would be my plan by the time I do it twice, and then plant in some annuals in here. This is I think a bunch of dock that came in here and grew, but I don't know that. There was okra in this mix, and I'll be real honest, I don't know my okra plants that well. They obviously ate some of this, and you can even see some cowpeas were climbing on some of that there. So I could be wrong. This may actually be all okra in here, and this was their first time ever grazing okra. But this would be the only spot in the field that the okra really grew that I've been able to tell so far. So I will walk you over and show you where, so watering here, this video may be a little bit longer. So watering here, I've got their mineral over here on the side that I've made. This area they really stripped down so a lot of the annuals was taller in this section right here. And my guess would be if I did a little bit more non-selective grazing, then they would, their manure might not be as runny because the protein wouldn't be as high. They'd get a little bit more dry matter in there with it. This cleaned up pretty good, but I think it's gonna jump back fairly quick. There is a lot of crabgrass in here. The clover was already seeded out, so it's gonna come back. As you can see, it's in here. It's been in here for years. And one other thing I haven't mentioned yet is the deer. So I know the deer are eating some of the annuals, and I don't know at what point that they're really causing problems, but I know they are causing problems. And just to give you an idea, on this 20 acres, there's about 30 deer a night that is down here in this 20 acres. So this is where I'm watering at. I've got a water spigot down here, and I use this system to water the field across the creek over there. And so I could do more on that later on, but quick coupler connect to the hose that goes across the creek, because I have solid rock in the creek over there. Hopefully you can see that. Obviously the water stays plenty full, and I do have electric running through here, going across this spot, and this is just a Job valve that I rigged up, and I've watered as many as 120 out of a system like this, but I have very high water pressure. That's a high flow valve, and it refills very rapidly when the cows take a drink. And then when you keep consistent and constant water to them, they don't really fight over water that much. So I'm gonna make my way back over here. Obviously the cows laid over here in the shade a bunch. So this area is knocked down pretty significantly where they laid at. We'll see how much that comes back in the next 20 days. These are all walnut trees in here, so grass doesn't always grow great underneath a walnut tree. From what I understand, the walnut holes, when they break down, they can be stagnate growth on grass and things like that. I think it's the tree's defense way of ensuring it gets more nutrients than what's around it. So there's some manure in here that looks pretty good, and then there's others that it's pretty runny, honestly. This area down here, the creek, we've got a 25-foot buffer zone on both sides of the creek. That's a riparian zone basically that we use, and so this section down here does get some water in it, flood, so there's no annuals that get planted down there. But I'm gonna move up here into the actual grass area, or the field where the annuals are. And again, I'm still seeing soybeans left behind, and I know that's plenty high in protein that they didn't eat. Plenty of crabgrass in here. And crabgrass, you know, there's some people that hate crabgrass, and when you say you planted crabgrass, people shake their head, but summertime, you know, is a great way to utilize that crabgrass. So here's where we're at. You can see the side by side here. There's ragweed in here. I don't like ragweed. They just came off a field that had quite a bit in it, but they ate it down really well, especially in its early growth stage. It's really high in protein. So not that I want ragweed for quail, but I have had a couple different covey of quail on the farm this year, which is phenomenal. I haven't had that in several years, and I know that they eat ragweed seed. But in here, if we go down here, you can just see the rows that are here when you look through here. It just, like I said, I'm certain that the 4-inch rain pulled the seeds down much deeper than what I wanted to. Probably coming back over it with a crimper roller a couple weeks later didn't help me with compacting that around there. I don't know that. All right, I'm not I would say I'm definitely not a conventional or a farmer. I'm first generation for anybody that doesn't know. And so all this is kind of a learning process for me, but I also don't mind failing whenever I learn stuff too. So as you get over this hill a little bit better, the annuals do get a little bit thicker over here, and I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, annuals obviously enjoy the sun a lot more, but this little pocket bowl over here really seems to hold moisture all down through here. So I think there's a lot of dew that lays in here in the morning. So if you walk down here any morning, even when it's pretty dry here, your boots will be absolutely soaked over here. So still, obviously didn't help it get as tall as years past. Like I said, when you go through a month of June, right after you plant, and the plants are really getting started and the roots are getting started, and you only get a 1/2 inch of rain, that's it's pretty difficult. So I'll keep going across here with the cows, and in a few days I hope to show you. I plan on setting up my daily moves for probably 5 days ahead of time, 6 days ahead of time. I got a busy week in 2 weeks, and my niece is going to come over and move cows for me while I'm gone. So when I have a week like that, I usually try to set things up so that way either my dad, or usually dad's the one that's always done it, but this summer my niece is coming over to do it. So that's she's old enough to drive now, so that's pretty awesome. So there's also red clover in here. I'll show that. Plenty of Johnson grass. Again, I've said it before in other videos, Johnson grass don't bother me. Cows can eat it all. You know, I've been watching these videos on non-selective grazing, and I have to say I'm extremely intrigued on trying it to see what happens. And I'm not going to do that this year. In the winter time, I do strip graze pretty hard. I try to graze as many days of the year as possible. And last year, I fed more hay than I had in several years, and there was a few reasons for that. And travel trips out of town with my off-farm job was one of those reasons. And so I fed hay for 3 weeks last year. Most years I end up feeding hay for a week or two. Last year I think total ended up being 3 weeks of feeding hay. I despise feeding hay. It's just one of those things that really, really irritates me. So now the cows have been in here now for literally, I guess, 20 minutes. Not even, because I started the video as soon as I moved them in. And we can see the first thing they walked through here on this field and clipped off immediately was the sorghum Sudan grass. And kind of get around some of these. I did turn the bull in. That's an update. So I've been fall calving, and I turned in our Faro Cattle Company bull that we bought this year for a calving date to start. I think it would be April 28th. And so there he is. And I feel confident I'm going to switch over to PCC. I think he's going on this fall. He'll be 2 years old. So, and I'm probably only going to leave him in here for 21 days. And there's a couple reasons for that. I'll talk about that in a later video. So, just some examples. This cow obviously looks fine. Gut fill is full. If you look at her tail head back here, she's fat. She's got fat deposit. She's an older cow. Same thing here. This one looks just fine. But some of the cows definitely don't fit the management style, and I'll show you one example of that. These are all fall calves. I've typically used, I would say, smaller bulls the last few years, but here's a cow that doesn't fit the management, and you can just see from her. She's getting the same amount as everybody else, but I'll just say I think that's one ugly cow, and as soon as she comes up open, then she'll move on. This little heifer here is not bad. Anyway, I'm gonna stop the video for now because I could probably talk for hours, and nobody wants to listen to me that long. So that's it. My what I would say is failed annuals, but there's still plenty here for the cows to eat. And this is 20 acres in the summertime that that I can put the cows on for typically 40-45 days. That gives the entire rest of the farm a pretty good rest going into fall, where I can really stockpile some grass, and that helps me graze through the winter time. So all right, I am out.